Sit down with me for a moment. My dear, there's a story you need to hear. Some betrayals don't come with shouting or slammed doors. They come quietly through a banking app, a missing balance, and a silence that answers you before a single word ever arrives. This is one of those stories. My name is Marianne Hale, and the morning my marriage ended, I was standing in my kitchen, holding a mug I didn't even want. It was a Tuesday, ordinary, quiet, the kind of day that doesn't look dangerous until it is. The toaster clicked. The dog, my old beagle, Penny, scratched at the back door like she always did. I opened my banking app because I planned to transfer money for the property tax. Nothing dramatic, just grown-up life. And there it was, $0. I blinked once, then again. I refreshed the screen, logged out, logged back in, refreshed again. Still, $0. Not low, not pending, not processing. 0. That joint account held our retirement cushion, our emergency savings, our we'll be fine money, the number we used to point at, like proof we were doing life correctly. I stared at the screen so long, my coffee cooled. Then my fingers started to tingle. That strange, electrical warning your body gives when your mind hasn't caught up yet. I whispered, out loud, to nobody. No, there has to be a mistake. And the air in the kitchen went thin. I called my husband, Graham, straight to voicemail. I called again. Same. I texted, is the bank app acting up for you too? The message delivered. Then the little word appeared underneath. Read. No reply. That's when my stomach dropped. Because men who make mistakes rush to explain. Men who plan disappear. I tried to breathe slowly, the way my doctor once taught me after a panic episode years ago. In, hold, out. But my hands were already shaking. I checked our other shared account, the one linked to house bills. Also low, not 0, but low enough to tell me the same story. I looked at Penny. She tilted her head, confused by my stillness. And I thought very clearly, he didn't just take money. He took time. He took safety. Then I heard the garage door. My heart leapt, but it wasn't him. It was just the neighbor's car outside. The normal world continuing, indifferent. My dear, have you ever noticed how the mind begins to replay old scenes? The moment betrayal announces itself. Like your brain turns into a detective when your heart can't afford to be naive anymore. Suddenly, I remembered Graham saying 2 months earlier, we should simplify things. One main account, less clutter. I'd laughed. We've had it this way for 20 years. He'd kiss my forehead and said, trust me. Trust me. I remembered him insisting on being the primary account holder because he said it made transfers easier. I remembered the new password he created and told me to write down somewhere safe. Then later joked, don't worry, you don't need to memorize it, sweetheart. I've got it. I remembered a remark he made in the living room while watching one of those financial advice shows. Women panic, men plan. At the time, I rolled my eyes. Now I sat at the kitchen table and felt that line crawl under my skin, like something alive. I didn't find the note immediately. I found it because I went looking for his phone charger, the one he always stole from my side of the bed, because some strange part of me still expected him to come home that evening like nothing happened. The note was on the counter under a folded dish towel. like he didn't even respect me enough to leave it in the open. A plain sheet of paper. One paragraph. I need space. This isn't working. I'll be in touch. No apology. No explanation. No mention of the money. Just space. Men always call abandonment space when they don't want to admit they've fled. My throat went tight. I read it twice, hoping more words would appear on the page. Nothing. I turned it over. Blank. That blankness felt personal. Like, you don't deserve more than this. By noon, I was at the bank. I wore a cardigan I hated and shoes I didn't remember putting on. My body was moving on autopilot because if I paused too long, I was going to sit down in the parking lot and fall apart. The banker who met me was a woman named Darlene. Late 40s. Calm eyes. The kind of face that has witnessed real life. She glanced at the screen, then at me, and her expression didn't change in surprise. That was the first humiliation, because it told me, this happens. Often. I don't understand, I said. That account had money in it yesterday. Darlene's voice softened. He transferred the funds this morning, she said, from the joint account into a private account. I leaned forward, but I didn't authorize that. He didn't need you to, she said carefully. He was authorized. I stared at her. All of it. She nodded once. Every cent. My ears started ringing. I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Where did he send it? Darlene hesitated, just a fraction, like she was measuring what she was allowed to say. Then she slid a printed page across the desk. Here's the transfer record, she said. You can request further details with legal paperwork. Legal paperwork. My God, we were married for 23 years, and now I needed legal paperwork to find out where my life went. Humiliation doesn't arrive first. Shock arrives first. Humiliation comes second when practical life starts knocking. My landlord called at 4. We lived in a rental townhouse, not because we couldn't afford to buy, but because Graham always said, renting keeps us flexible. Flexible. That word became a joke I couldn't laugh at. Marianne, the landlord said, just checking in. Rent's due Friday. I swallowed. Of course, I said. After I hung up, I stood in the hallway and stared at the wall. Then I did the thing grown women do when they're trying not to drown. I made a list. Rent, electricity, gas, phone, Penny's food, my medication, my car insurance, and the biggest line, written twice. How do I survive this week? That night, I cried so hard my face ached. Not because I missed him, but because I was 58, and I had never imagined being forced to start over like this. With no warning. Here's what men like Graham don't count on. Women talk, and women remember. By the end of the week, 3 women had called me. My cousin Ruth, sharp-tongued, loyal, the kind of woman who shows love by taking charge. My neighbor Elaine, retired school secretary who knows everyone's business without ever sounding nosy. And an old colleague named Margot, the quiet one who always saw more than she said. None of them asked, "What did you do wrong?" They asked, "What do you need right now?" Ruth said, "I'm bringing groceries." Don't argue. Elaine said, "I'm walking Penny with you tonight. You shouldn't be alone." Margot said, "Meet me for coffee tomorrow and bring any paperwork you have." I didn't understand why Margot asked for paperwork. Not yet. But I listened. Because when you're in crisis, you don't ignore the women who come with steadiness instead of gossip. I stopped calling him, stopped texting, stopped asking why. Because understanding doesn't rebuild a life. Action does. On Monday morning, I opened a new account. In my name only. Darlene did it quietly, efficiently, like she had done it 100 times. She slid the forms across and said softly, "Do you have access to your own paycheck deposit?" I blinked. "Yes, that goes into the joint account." Her eyes lifted. "Then you need to change that today," she said. I felt stupid, not because I was unintelligent, but because I had trusted a marriage to function like a partnership. I changed my payroll info at work before lunch, and the moment I hit submit, something in me eased. It was tiny, but it was real. The first night alone felt like walking around a house after the furniture has been moved. Everything is familiar, but the echoes are wrong. I sat on the couch with Penny pressed against my leg, and for the first time in years, I realized no one was going to complain about what I watched. No one was going to sigh if I turned the lamp on. No one was going to criticize dinner. I ate cereal standing at the counter because I didn't want to sit at the table where the bank app had erased my future. And then, unexpectedly, I slept. Not perfectly, but I slept. It shocked me. I thought I would lie awake in grief. Instead, my body collapsed like it had been waiting for permission. My dear, sometimes peace arrives disguised as grief. You think you're mourning a person, but you're actually mourning the version of yourself who kept shrinking to keep a marriage alive. Because when I replayed the last year, I saw things I had ignored. How he stopped asking about my day. How he started working late without explanation. How every disagreement ended with me apologizing just to stop the coldness. How he once said, after I questioned a purchase, "You don't trust me. That's why this isn't working." He trained me to treat his secrecy as my flaw. And when he vanished, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt strangely unburdened. That scared me because it meant something ugly. Part of me had already been alone. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. His name flashed like a ghost. Graham. I stared at it. A normal wife would answer immediately. A normal abandoned wife would answer immediately too, desperate for closure. But I wasn't desperate. I was angry. I let it ring until it stopped. 5 minutes later, he called again. I answered calmly, "Hello." He sounded irritated. "Why haven't you been calling?" My mouth actually opened in disbelief. "You emptied our account and left," I said. What exactly was I supposed to call and say? He exhaled like I was exhausting him. "I needed time," he said. "I thought you'd understand." Understand. That word again, like my job was to swallow betrayal gracefully. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply said, "I've adjusted." There was a pause, and for the first time, his voice changed. Adjusted how? He spoke like he thought my life had been paused while he went off to figure things out. Like I was sitting in the same chair, in the same sadness, waiting. "I'm not saying I'm done," he said. "I just needed space. You've been intense." Intense. Women are always intense when we notice reality. "I'm not discussing our marriage over the phone," I said. He got sharper. "Well, I can't come home right now. I'm staying with a friend." "Which friend?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation told me enough. Then he said casually, like it wasn't a bomb, "I'll send you something for rent soon." Send you something. Like I was a charity case. I said softly, "Keep it." What? He snapped. I said keep it. I repeated. Silence. He wasn't used to me refusing. While he was finding himself, I was rebuilding mine. I was a part-time office administrator at a small clinic. Not glamorous. Stable. Quiet work. Margot helped me find side consulting, bookkeeping cleanup for small businesses. 2 clients turned into 4. Ruth taught me to stop apologizing when I accepted help. Elaine introduced me to a local women's walking group, retirees, widows, divorcees, women who had survived men and still wore lipstick. And my dear, the first time I walked with them, listening to their laughter, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. I started cooking real meals again. Not whatever is fastest so he won't complain. Real meals. I sat at my table again, slowly, and I realized my home wasn't missing a man. It was missing my presence. 2 months after the account went to zero, I came home and found him in the driveway, leaning against his car like a man arriving for a conversation he assumed would go his way. My hands went cold. Penny barked once, then pressed against my leg. He smiled like we were about to have a romantic reconciliation. Hey, he said. I unlocked the door without greeting him. He followed me inside, like he belonged there. Then he stopped, because the house was different. Not redecorated, just rearranged. His chair was gone. His clutter was gone. The framed photo of us at Niagara Falls, gone. He looked around like he'd walked into someone else's life. You've been busy, he said. Yes, I replied. He turned toward the door. Did you change the locks? I looked at him. Yes. His face tightened. Why? I answered plainly, because you left. He sat on the couch like a man trying to remember his lines. But this wasn't rehearsal. This was consequence. I think I made a mistake, he said. I didn't respond immediately because some sentences deserve silence before they get an answer. He shifted, uncomfortable under it. I was under pressure. I felt trapped. You and I, we weren't happy. He said, like we had jointly emptied the account. Like betrayal had been collaborative. Finally, I asked, where did you go? He shrugged. Just stayed with a friend. Thought about things. Men always think in places they won't name. Which friend? I asked again. He glanced away. There it was. The lie without words. Then he softened his voice, like he was offering mercy instead of seeking it. I came back to fix this. Fix this. Like life was a chair he could push back into place. Like damage was reversible if you said the right sentence. He apologized, but not cleanly. Not like, I stole from you. Not like, I panicked and chose myself. More like, I'm sorry this became dramatic. He talked about stress, his childhood, his fear of aging, his need for freedom. Freedom, as if marriage was a cage instead of a commitment. He never said the simplest truth. I emptied our account. So I said it for him. You didn't take space, I said calmly. You took my security. He blinked, offended. That's not fair. Fair. The word men use when accountability feels uncomfortable. I let it sit. Then I asked, what did you expect to happen to me? He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried. I knew you'd be okay. My dear, that sentence is what selfish people say when they gamble with your stability and assume you'll clean up the mess. He didn't know I'd be okay. He just hoped he wouldn't have to watch the fallout. He circled back to the real reason he was there. I was thinking He said carefully, maybe we could restore things, financially too. There it was. Not reconciliation. Access. I stared at him. Restore to where? I asked. He frowned. To normal. Like before. Normal. The normal where I trusted blindly? The normal where I adjusted my tone so he wouldn't withdraw affection? The normal where I apologized for asking reasonable questions? I leaned forward slightly. Graham, I said, you didn't just hurt me. You showed me who you are when you think nobody can stop you. He looked confused, like he thought love meant immunity, like marriage meant permanent forgiveness. This was the moment I told him what I had done. I opened my own account. I said, my paycheck no longer goes into anything you can touch. He stiffened. I paid rent. I continued. I handled the bills. I asked for help. I rebuilt. His jaw tightened. You couldn't have done that without me, he snapped. And there it was. The truth he hadn't meant to say out loud. He believed my survival belonged to him. He believed my competence existed under his permission. I smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. I did, I said, and I can. The room changed temperature. Because he wasn't looking at the woman he left. He was looking at the woman who adapted. And that version of me did not ask for approval. He tried guilt. After all I've done for you. He tried nostalgia. Remember our anniversary trip. He tried irritation. You're being cold. And I stayed steady through all of it. Because power doesn't raise its voice. It withdraws consent. You emptied our account and left me alone. I said quietly, that's not a mistake. That's a decision. He stared at me. Then he lowered his voice. I can put some of it back. Some of my own money. Like generosity. I shook my head. That's not the point. What is the point then? He demanded. I answered. The point is, I don't want a life where I have to wonder what you'll do when you feel entitled to escape. That was the sentence that ended it. Not anger. Clarity. He stood at the door, hands in his pockets, like a boy pretending to be a man. Are you really done? He asked. There was no heartbreak in his voice. Just disbelief. Because he thought I would beg. He thought the silence had been a strategy, not a shift. Yes, I said. No drama. No speech. Just fact. He swallowed. You'll regret this. I smiled faintly. I already lived the regret. I said, it was called staying. That one landed. He didn't argue again. He left. And this time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt released. The next morning, I woke up and made coffee. Penny begged for her treat. The world did not collapse because a man exited it. My chest felt lighter. Months passed. I paid bills, saved slowly, built carefully. I stopped explaining myself to people who preferred chaos over calm. I bought myself a new winter coat, sat at my own table, played music without asking if it was too loud. I started sleeping with the window cracked open, breathing cold air, like a woman reclaiming oxygen. Peace doesn't arrive loudly. It settles. People assumed I was devastated. They expected tears, breakdown, drama. They didn't see the relief, the strength, the way my shoulders uncurled, the quiet pride of solving problems alone. Some victories are sacred, not because they're secret, but because they are earned in silence. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. I didn't realize what I had. I stared at it. Then I placed the phone face down and went back to sleep. Because realization is not repentance, and regret is not restoration. Some men don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that felt powerful while you tolerated them. My dear, love that can abandon you without warning was never safety. It was convenience. And convenience evaporates when accountability enters the room. I didn't win because he came back. I won because I stopped treating his presence like proof of my worth. I stopped calling betrayal confusion. I stopped calling abandonment space. I stopped translating selfishness into something poetic. I started naming things accurately. And accuracy is power. He left with the money. I kept my future. Months later, I checked my bank account again. Not to panic, not to refresh in fear, just to transfer money into savings. The number wasn't large, but it was mine. Earned, protected, untouchable. I closed the app, made my coffee, opened the window, and for the first time in years, I did not feel afraid of what tomorrow might cost me. That quietly was the better deal, because money can be stolen, but dignity, once you reclaim it, it becomes the kind of wealth no one can drain overnight. My dear, if you stayed until the end, then you understand something most people learn the hard way. Not every ending is a loss. Some endings are protection. My name is Auntie Jo, and around here we don't rush these stories. We let them unfold the way life actually does. Through bank statements, quiet kitchens, late night realizations, and women who stop mistaking endurance for love. Before you go, sit with this. If someone emptied your foundation and walked away, would you chase them or rebuild? Do you believe love survives betrayal without accountability? Have you ever realized your strength only after someone assumed you wouldn't? Tell me in the comments. I read every word. And if you want more stories where justice isn't loud, but it is precise, subscribe. Your next story is already waiting.